On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about Doomsday for the Deceiver by Flotsam and Jetsam. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal, and we like to talk about it. And today, we're talking about an album by Flotsam and Jetsam. They're a thrash metal band that was the original band of one Mr. Jason Newsted.
Indeed.
Who would go on to be a member of Metallica for a good while before going off on his own.
And joining Voivod for a spell.
Yeah. For a little bit.
Yeah.
Some cool thrash metal from 1986.
1986.
Back in the year 1986, the band Flotsam and Jetsam put out an album, and it was a real knee slapper.
It was their debut.
We'll talk more about it later. First, how are you doing?
Nothing's going on.
You've had a big day.
I've had a big day. You know, the day yesterday was an even bigger day.
There was more stuff happening yesterday for you.
It was all lead up.
Yeah,
I mean, is what it was. Yeah, because I took 2 days off. Because my last doctor visit, I went to go see my family practitioner, and he looks at me and says, you're over 50 now. You know what that means? I'm like, okay. Yeah, I guess. And so he scheduled me for my colonoscopy. And so today was my colonoscopy. And they told me, by the way, I've now done 2 things I wasn't supposed to do expressly from the people who said...
What did you do wrong?
Well, I drove here. That's one thing.
Oh.
I wasn't supposed to
you
drive.
drove here to my apartment.
Yeah.
Oh.
I said, driving, that's off the table.
For the rest of the day.
For the rest of the day. You don't definitely want to do any driving. I'm like, okay, I'm driving later. But,
okay.
So I spent the whole day yesterday.
What was the other thing you did wrong?
I had a beer. They said none of that. But we went to Ebenezer's. You got to have a beer with your lunch.
Exactly. Why didn't they want you to do that? Just because you hadn't eaten anything?
Well, because I hadn't eaten anything in like 36 hours, and they had given me a powerful anesthetic that morning.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I suppose maybe that could have some unwanted interactions, but
right.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
Yeah.
You seem fine.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Mostly.
What could
go wrong?
Yeah. So I spent all day yesterday just.
Kids, don't do that at home.
Yeah, don't obey your doctor.
Yeah,
when the doc
listen to your
says so,
doctors.
Exactly.
Don't be like OJ.
Don't be an idiot like me.
But do get your colonoscopy.
Definitely.
When you turn 50.
Colon health is important.
It is.
And by the way, I said, what if like 2 very close family members have had colon cancer, and they said, well, they should come in immediately.
Immediately?
Yeah, that's what the doctor said.
Immediately?
I actually had this conversation. I'm not saying who I had in mind when I asked the question.
Yeah. So they just qualified that as you should have a colonoscopy right now, or they didn't mention, there was no mention of age?
There's no mention of age. It says just at their nearest convenience, it's a good idea for them to get a colonoscopy. It's better safe. I mean, with me, there's no family history.
Yeah.
Just the fact that I'm old now, so they want me to come in and have it done. But if you know anybody who has a family history where, say, their, I don't know, dad and uncle had colon cancer, probably go get that checked.
Yeah.
Just to make sure.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's what they...
Immediately.
Well, immediately.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
should they like do it like earlier than 50, like 40 or 30? They're like any time, immediately.
Right now.
Yeah, like get them on the horn. Get them over here.
Interesting.
We'll rinse off the one we used earlier.
I don't know if I'm going to necessarily pursue an immediate colonoscopy.
Yeah, that's probably not necessary, but...
Yeah, like again, listen to your doctors. Also, that wasn't my doctor.
Not your doctor. It was my doctor.
But like I'm, you could technically get colon cancer at any time, theoretically. But I'm 28. Mm-hmm. Like both my dad and I'm starting to doubt now whether or not I'm pretty sure my uncle. I don't know if my uncle had to do chemo. But I think they had. I think they found some cancerous growths that he had to have surgery to remove. Mm-hmm. My dad had surgery and then went through chemo.
Sure.
As a to be as sure as possible. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if I'm gonna go immediately seek to get a colonoscopy.
Within in the next handful of years.
But like neither of them developed it until they were over the age of 60. Well, I guess my dad might have been in his late 50s.
Mm-hmm. But by the time you develop it, that's sort of in the find out stage.
Sure. But if it were to progress along a similar path, I've got some time.
Sure.
Before it becomes an immediate pressing concern. Maybe I'll revisit that after 30.
Sure. There you go.
But I don't know. I don't know.
Just putting that out there.
God, okay, I'll call.
You don't have to call right now.
I'll call my doctor. Hello. Yes. My doctor that I definitely have, because I definitely have a family practitioner that I go and see for checkups regularly.
Who's there at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
Well, it's one of those family friend doctors.
Oh, sure.
Where you can just call them while they're at home and they'll give you a consultation. It's like that.
Hey, Willie, my ass!
I need you to look in my butt. I need you to look in my butt.
Stat!
I'm going to die. I have ass cancer. It started to... For a couple words there, I turned into Rick Sanchez.
You did, sort of.
Morty, I'm going to die.
Yeah, and then...
Morty, I have ass cancer.
It started out with Rick Sanchez, and then it went into... Jason Alexander. I mean...
It did.
Yeah.
Jerry!
I have ass cancer.
I have ass cancer, Jerry. Oh, good Lord. Well, but that be all that is to say, you're doing well.
I'm doing well. They found a polyp, and they're gonna look at it, and then they're like, it's probably none.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Good. Thanks for coming in. Here, we'll send you a bill.
Okay, that's good news.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm glad it's good news.
Yeah.
I don't know why I felt I had to say that I'm glad it's good news.
Yeah, it's good news. Ugh, fuck.
As if I really wanted you to have colorectal cancer. It's like, God.
Ugh.
But that word's just gonna be funny for the rest of the night.
It is.
It's gonna keep popping up. It's gonna keep polyping up.
All right.
What's been going on with me?
Yeah.
Is I started playing a little game called Death Stranding.
Sure. Yeah.
By one Mr. Hideo Kojima, and
from 3 years ago.
More than 4. 2019 is when it came out.
5 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And boy, is it a weird game. I mean, I knew that.
You knew that going in.
I knew it was a weird game. I've seen plenty of people play it. I've watched full playthroughs of it. So I know what happens. I'm pretty thoroughly spoiled on most of the stuff. But I didn't quite know how it feels to play it.
Yeah.
And it plays like literally no other video game I've ever played in my entire life.
Yeah.
Partially because the entire concept of the game is you walk around and deliver packages.
Right.
So there's a lot of mechanics for how you walk around.
I was told that there's some walking around in the game.
There's a lot of walking around. At least I'm sure there will be a lot more walking around. Most of my time playing the game so far feels like it's been spent watching cutscenes.
Sure.
Because it's a Hideo Kojima game.
Mm-hmm.
And the man doesn't know how to just make a fucking movie already.
Right.
But
Damn it. Okay.
But however, it is like last night while I was playing, I think I got to probably the longest instance of gameplay.
Yeah.
And then I'd been there, in that area for a little while where you're in the first kind of like half of the map. It's almost like a tutorial area sort of, and running packages to these various outposts and connecting them and that sort of thing. And then there's a bit you have to like go over this sort of low-lying range of mountains to get to this city that's on the other side. And there's a bunch of BTs, which are the weird oil ghost things.
Sure.
And that by that point you are given a weapon with which to fight them, which is a grenade that contains an aerosolized mixture of your own blood, because Sam, aka Norman Reedus, is a super special boy, in that he both has a condition in the universe called Dooms, always spelled in all capital letters. I'm sure it stands for something, because everything in a Hideo Kojima game is an acronym.
Right.
Everything means something in a Hideo Kojima game, even if it makes no fucking sense. But so that means that he can sort of sense when BTs are close by.
Right. Do we know what BTs stands for?
Beached thing.
Beached thing. So it's not BTs as in BTS, just him referring to his favorite K-pop.
It is not. Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
There's a concept in the game called the Beach, which is a sort of like a netherworld, where when you die, there are like two different parts of your soul. It's based on some shit from Egyptian mythology.
Okay.
Or something. There's so much going on in this game. Anyway, these BTs, for whatever reason, crossed over to our world in the event that is called the Death Stranding.
Okay.
And if a BT kills you, it triggers. It's basically like matter and antimatter colliding, so it triggers a huge explosion.
Sure.
And when you die, if your body's not incinerated, it creates a BT.
Gotcha.
So you have basically, for public safety, all bodies have to be cremated, and there's a bunch of bullshit. But so Sam is also what's called a repatriate, which isn't really explained. I think it'll be explained later in the game how it works.
Okay.
It'll be some metaphysical bullshit. But basically, if Sam dies, he gets to come back to life because it's a video game.
Sure.
So they're explaining essentially the video game mechanic of Sam coming back to life.
Respawning.
Where it becomes a game mechanic, and it's like acknowledged in the universe, where he can do that. And because he's able to do that, his blood and other bodily excretions have special properties when interacting with like BTs and whatnot. So his blood, his urine, and his feces, as well as his shower water, can all be crafted into like weapon items, which is why you have a all-in-one bathroom shower thing in your little room.
Wow.
And using its functions as a game mechanic. It's always a little awkward going into the shower because there's always a lot of shots of Norman Reedus's bare ass. The camera shows a lot of digital Norman Reedus's body. It's also something that's frustrating while playing the game, and I know it's intentional.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure it's supposed to elicit this exact response and sort of make you feel the way Sam feels. Because Sam has dooms, people who have that condition tend to suffer from various different phobias. They tend to be a bit more mentally and emotionally unstable. Sam suffers from, I don't remember exactly what the name is, but it's effectively the fear of being touched.
Oh, wow.
He does not like being touched by other people. And almost every member of the main cast is aware of this and often says it out loud, like, oh, that's right, you don't like being touched, or, oh, I remember reading your file that you have this and this and this. And then over and over and over again in every cutscene, they try to fucking touch him. And I'm like, stop trying to touch him. You know better. Stop it. Like, people constantly go for handshakes. Members of his own family constantly touch him or try to touch him. And it's like, stop. Fucking quit it. Like, it pisses me off every time. It's like, why do none of these characters respect his boundaries? And I think that's the point. It's supposed to make you identify with him of, like, you know.
Right.
That's a discomfort, I feel like, that not the exact feeling of not liking being touched, but just people who should know better seemingly not putting very much effort into remembering things that bother you or trigger you. But yeah, it's kind of funny almost, because people will go for a handshake and it's the same goddamn thing every time, where he just looks at them like, Why
would you do that?
Why would you do that? But it's a weird video game. I'm enjoying it so far. The controls are so weird, and the interface feels a little labyrinthine. I'm getting used to it, but like it suffers from Red Dead Redemption 2 syndrome, where they tried a little too hard to make to make you be able to do so many things on a controller,
right?
Where there's only so many buttons. And if there's one thing I've been bad at in my entire history of playing video games, it's remembering combos for things.
Sure.
If I have to remember a combination, you're thinking of snacks.
Yeah.
If I have to remember a combination of buttons in order to do something,
I'm
going to forget about it so many times. I'm not going to remember that I have to hold square and then press up and then hold right R1. Like, it also doesn't help that it's a PlayStation 5 controller, which the PlayStation controllers are my least used controllers in the history of
It's a good controller.
It's a good controller. I like it just fine. But when it takes me a second to translate R1 from Xbox, like, okay, what button is that? Because for me, I'm used to that being RB, as in right bumper.
Right.
Because the Xbox controller has bumpers and triggers rather than just R1 and R2.
I've lost R2.
R2?
Yeah.
Where are you? There's something uniquely annoying about the way Luke Skywalker says both R2 and C-3PO, where he's just so whiny. It's been a long time since I've watched the original trilogy, but I always remember thinking, like, why is, in that one instance, Mark Hamill super annoying? Why is it just when he tries to yell out for R2 or C-3PO? Why does he sound so goddamn annoying?
You have to know he's self-aware enough to where if he's ever gone back and watched those, he's like, oh, God.
He was also, young, and Luke was supposed to be a little young as well. But
snotty kid.
Yeah. But anyhow.
Death Stranding. Yeah.
Death Stranding.
Right.
Okay, let's talk about. Why don't we talk about the album?
Okay.
Doomsday for the Deceiver.
By Flotsam and Jetsam.
Yeah, we love the. I don't know what this says.
I don't know either.
I don't know. Doomsday for the Deceiver by Flotsam and Jetsam from 1986. Yeah. Flotsam and Jetsam is an American thrash metal band from Phoenix, Arizona. And at the time that this album had come out, Mr. Jason Newsted had recently, or not necessarily when the album had come out, but in the years prior to this, Jason Newsted had left his original band, moved to Phoenix, and ended up joining up with the rest of Flotsam and Jetsam.
As the bass player.
the bass player, and I guess lyricist as well, because he is credited with the lyrics for almost all of the songs on this album, which I feel like that's a somewhat unique combination. If a bassist is not also the vocalist, you don't expect them to have been the one to write most of the lyrics.
Yeah, I mean that's really true of most like instrumentalists in the band. I mean, if they didn't sing it, why are they writing the lyrics for it?
Yeah, like normally you expect the singer to be the one writing the lyrics. I guess, like for me, I always think of like Dream Theater on that, because usually James LaBrie, he typically writes the lyrics for like one song on the album, but usually a lot of the lyrics are by the other members of the band on a typical Dream Theater album.
Especially ones about 12-stepping.
Yes, anything in the 12-step suite is going to be a Mike Portnoy joint, which I'm still. I like the single that they put out now that Portnoy's back in the band. Those last month sometime they released a single. I don't know when the new album is going to be coming out, but I'm excited about that.
Indeed,
whenever it happens. But
Rush was also that situation.
Really?
Yeah, Neil Peart wrote all the lyrics for Rush. He was the drummer.
Interesting. But Flotsam and Jetsam is what we were talking about.
Right.
Jason Newsted, if you don't know, went on to be the bassist for Metallica from 1987.
Yeah.
On to 2001. Basically after this album came out and like ended up being quite well liked and well regarded.
It was.
This is like often considered to be one of the best thrash metal albums not made by a member of the Big Four.
Right.
Like this is a very well regarded album historically speaking. But did that and then immediately kind of moved on to Metallica.
Yeah,
and stuck around for a while, and then eventually kind of got sick of it, as I understand.
Yeah,
I've never gotten quite the full story of like the whole deal between Jason Newsted and Metallica.
There's a documentary.
I suppose. Yeah, I should. As a metalhead, even though I'm.
That's like before your time.
Yeah.
Kinda, yeah.
And I think there are plenty of metalheads that are my age that do like Metallica, but not that I dislike Metallica. I just I'm like, oh, Metallica, okay. Sure. They don't necessarily interest me super much.
Right.
Words.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know a whole lot of the history between the two. I also have never really gotten it straight as to why the bass on And Justice for All is so inaudible in the mix.
Yeah, that'd be Lars. Apparently.
Supposedly.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason Lars kept on asking the bass to be lowered further and further and further.
Right.
Did he just not like Jason Newsted, or like...
He just didn't like the situation.
I guess.
He wasn't happy. I mean, they had a wildly revered member of their band die.
Yeah, and that sucks, but it's like, it's not the new guy's fault.
Yeah, he didn't kill him.
Jason Newsted wasn't the bus.
Right. Or the black ice, as it were.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault. So, but anyway, so in this band, I should have looked up more about other members of the band because we're just talking about Jason Newsted at this point. Let's see, credits.
Hell, I don't even know.
We've also got Eric A.K. Knutson on the lead vocals, Edward Carlson on guitars, backing vocals, Michael Gilbert also playing guitar, providing backing vocals. And Kelly David Smith on the drums, and also providing backing vocals at times.
They do these great 5-part harmonies on it.
What if they did, though?
I mean...
Is there a metal band that does 5-part harmonies on an album at some point?
I want to hear it.
Yeah. I'm sure that exists somewhere. The band continued on after Jason Newsted departed, and like a lot of bands we've talked about lately, there's a big gap, I think, in their discography.
There is. Like, they made 2 albums, and then that's where the gap happened, I believe.
Yeah.
Second.
Let me look at their full discography here. Actually, no, there's quite a few.
Is it? Quite a few?
There actually isn't really a gap in their discography. I was just kind of assuming that was the case.
There's a gap in my knowledge of their discography is what it is.
And I think I assumed that was the case because we were listening to their first album, and every time you look them up, you see their newest album, which came out this year.
Right.
But yeah, they've actually had a quite consistent output, with the biggest gap seeming to be between 2005 and 2010.
Right.
They went 5 years without an album, but outside of that, every couple of years they have put out an album since then.
I think their second album was actually the first one I got.
What's their second album?
Oh, what the hell's the name of it?
I was just looking at it.
Just looking at it.
No Place for Disgrace.
Yes, No Place for Disgrace. That was it. Yeah. On the cover art is somebody doing Harry Carey. I almost said Hare Krishna, but no. Harry Carey, yeah.
Someone's doing Harry Carey?
Hey!
How did he feel about that? Being on the album.
Anyway, you can get it.
Yeah, what's your history with the band? So you got their second album first?
I got their second album first, and that was, I think that I was already back in the States when I got it.
Okay.
And then somebody said, have you heard their first album? I'm like, I have not. And then I got this one. I'm like, this is great.
Nice.
And then I truly enjoyed it. And then I found out who their bass player was in the first album.
Sweet.
I'm like, oh, okay. Making connections here. I get it.
And then later you met him in the parking lot of Hardee's in Minot, North Dakota.
Minot, North Dakota, yeah. In 1989.
It's been a long time since I've heard that story. Could you tell it for me again? Because I don't remember the details.
So it was after school. Yeah, it was after school had ended my freshman year.
Okay.
And my mom was taking me into town for something because we were living. We had just moved back to the States from the Philippines, and so we were still living in like temporary housing in the base.
Okay.
TLQ there, and we were coming into town, and that night before I had gone to see Metallica at the Minot City Auditorium.
God. Even in '89, it's weird to believe they've even fit there.
Yeah, and they did it. They filled half the place.
Wow.
Yeah, and The Cult opened for them.
Wow.
Yeah. And so anyway,
it just feels like. I mean, I guess maybe in Minot, North Dakota, the crowds wouldn't be quite so massive.
Well, I mean, I don't think modern culture had made it here yet.
We were still driving around in covered wagons.
Covered wagons, yeah. Everything was literal horsepower. So
except for the Air Force. The B-52s and whatnot. Those were the most advanced things in the state.
Oddly, at Minot Air Force Base at that time, it was all single engine, single prop.
Oh wow! Yeah. It was all biplanes.
Yeah.
The Air Force hadn't gotten, even though technically the United States Air Force has never operated. Well, okay, I shouldn't say has never operated biplanes. Just that the Air Force didn't exist at the same time that biplanes were in common use.
Right. The Air Force didn't exist until the late 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so we're going to stop at Hardee's on North Hill, and we're going to go in, and I see somebody coming out of the hotel that isn't a hotel anymore.
Yeah.
And it's with big orange hair.
There's a hotel near there, though.
Yes. But that particular hotel, which I've stayed in many times.
Yeah.
I have a lot of stories from the hotel that I can't tell here.
Is it where Slumberland is now?
What? No. Hardee's.
The Hardee's.
North Hill Hardee's.
Oh, I didn't realize we had another Hardee's.
Yeah, there's a North Hill Hardee's.
I didn't know that.
Uh-huh.
I was thinking of South Hill.
No, this is North. And it's still
we have two Hardee's?
We have two Hardee's.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it was Jason Newsted, and he came walking from the hotel into the Hardee's parking lot, and they went walking by the airport bus, and there was James and Lars talking to some dude about charts and shit.
Yeah.
And I go in there, and there's Kirk leaning against the counter, looking at a paper, eating a Danish, drinking an orange juice. I'm like, Mom, Metallica's here. She's like, go get their autograph. I'm not gonna fucking interrupt their breakfast.
Yeah, they're busy.
They're busy. They're doing shit. I would hate it if I did that to me. Yeah.
If I was Metallica.
I've regretted it for 35 years.
It happens.
Yeah.
If it's any consolation, I totally get it because I also would not want to interrupt them. I 100% understand. Like I don't know how I would. I feel like there's a difference in setting for me.
Yeah.
If I'm at like a show
Sure.
or at like a music festival and I see someone walking around, I'll happily like, say hi or something like that.
Or can you sign my boob or whatever?
Yeah. Sure. Like that's different. But if I were to just see someone from the band I like just walking around.
Buying pants at JCPenney.
I'd feel weird.
Yeah. It would be weird.
I would feel weird. Oddly enough, as far as I know, I don't think I've ever seen anyone from Ghost Bath walking around.
Really? Yeah, and they're from here.
Yeah. And as far as I think they still live here, I don't know.
I don't know about that. Maybe.
But
And by the way, the whole pants at JCPenney is a real story.
What?
That's
Who'd you see buying pants at JCPenney?
Jeff Bliss was buying pants at JCPenney, and ahead of him, also buying pants at JCPenney, was Alice Cooper.
In North Dakota.
In North Dakota.
He was just going through, or
they were playing a show somewhere, and he's like, I need some pants.
Yeah.
So he's there, and Jeff's like, yeah, I'm behind Alice Cooper buying pants.
Fucking Alice Cooper. I mean, if you see Alice Cooper, you know you've seen Alice Cooper.
Right.
There's no mistaking him for anyone else.
There is not. You're probably never ready to see Alice Cooper.
You're really not ready to see Alice Cooper going golfing.
Well, I mean, he's famous for that. He
Yeah.
has been for quite some time.
But like, if your mental image of Alice Cooper is him on stage
with a python around his neck and a microphone, and
seeing him in his golf clothes is wildly incongruous because he just dresses in the most stereotypical golf clothing ever.
Right.
The slacks and the striped polo and everything. Like,
I wish you would do that and bring the python with. Or sorry, it's a boa constrictor. It's not a python. Boa constrictor. Yeah, because he even had an album called Constrictor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if I would be able to tell you the difference between a python and a boa constrictor, because they're both technically constrictors.
Sure.
I think they're closely related, but I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know the difference.
I kind of want to know now.
Yeah. Maybe I'll look that up when we're done.
Okay.
Instead of doing that right now.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Because that wouldn't be totally boring.
No, that wouldn't be awful for anyone
to listen to.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
We could do that, Anus. We're not going to.
Yes, we won't. Thank us for it.
Yeah.
Please give us a sticker for not doing that and belaboring the point about it for the last minute and a half. So this album slap.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Absolutely. I think this album for sure slaps.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote down, I put score down and went, I'm going to do the score. And then I forgot to do it. So I think, I don't know if I would have been able to find all that much like quantitative stuff.
Right, because it's from 1986.
From 86, like this is a very well-regarded album. Very, considered pretty critically successful as far as thrash metal albums go. But I don't have a number on that. What's your favorite song?
I feel like Metal Shock is the one that
Metal Shock is really good.
I really like the most. Yeah.
The main riff of Metal Shock is fantastic. I wrote it down as an honorable mention, but maybe predictably for me, I like the title track.
Oh, well, yeah, because it comes at the really beautiful melody at the
front.
Yeah.
And then like I wasn't expecting it to be 9 minutes long. I was like, this is really nice, and this intro's going on for a while. Is this going to be the whole? Is this not an intro? Is this going to be the whole song? And it's just like an interstitial track. And then I was listening to it through the speakers in my living room, and I hit the button on my TV. It's like 9 minutes. Oh boy. And Metal Shock is also quite long. Yeah, Metal Shock's like 8 minutes long.
And it's a really cool bass part in the middle. Yeah,
I definitely did notice the bass.
Yeah.
Once I was like, oh, okay, Jason Newsted, and I was listening, I was like, this really good bass on this.
Yeah,
good bass, good bass,
good bass. And also, this album has a song called "Fade to Black" on it, which is also also a Metallica song.
Yeah, was that?
I don't know that was intentional.
Yeah,
I feel like it'd be weird if it was. But
what album was Fade to Black on?
Ride the Lightning.
Okay, that would have been kind of contemporary.
Yeah, that would have been just 2 years prior to this.
Yeah, interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a commonly. I mean, it's just what you would write in a screenplay.
Yeah.
If that were to happen on the screen.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think anyone can really be wrote a metal song. Let's call it Fade to Black.
They didn't invent the phrase.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I like that title track just a little bit more than Metal Shock, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But they're close. They're very close.
Mm-hmm.
What metal do you bestow upon this album like Maskanada to Chewbacca? Every once in a while when I say that, I kind of realize what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Because most of the time I just say it because it's the thing I say at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And every once in a while I'm like, it's silly that I'm still doing this, and it makes me laugh a little bit.
And you can't stop now.
I can't stop doing it.
No, it's like when my friend Tori, we went to lunch at Denny's. Did I told you about this?
I don't think so.
My buddy Tori and I went to lunch at Denny's, and we decided, let's make this a thing. Let's regularly, as buddies, let's go to lunch at Denny's, and we'll take turns buying lunch, and that's how we'll do it. I mean, you'll buy this time, well, I owe you lunch now, and then I'll buy that time, and you'll owe me lunch, and then we'll always go to lunch together. It'll be great. We went to lunch once, 20 years ago. And now we've determined that it's way too hilarious. If we went to lunch now, it would ruin the joke.
You can't have lunch ever again.
No, we can't.
You cannot have lunch together ever again.
Nope.
When you guys are like 80,
yeah,
then you can have lunch at Denny's, and then you'll both die an hour later.
Or here's the hilarious thing, because I made him pay that time.
Because it's your turn
it's
next.
My turn next. So what would happen is we get, he's like 4 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So I'll be 80, he'll be 76, and we'll be sitting there having lunch, and I will die at Denny's.
Before paying.
Yeah.
They'll just take your wallet.
Actually, knowing him, yes.
Anyway, I interrupted you before you could say what metal you're bestowing upon this album.
To me, this does deserve a gold.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I think it's a high silver for me.
Yeah.
It's good. Enjoyed it quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a high silver for me, I'd say. So next week, it will be the month of December.
It will be.
The most wonderful time of the year. It's Death Metal December, and I know exactly what album we're going to listen to, but I don't know what it sounds like yet because I haven't listened to it because it's relatively new. An album that snuck out while I wasn't looking. Called Absolute Elsewhere by Blood Incantation.
I've heard Blood Incantation.
Yes, we've talked about Blood Incantation before.
And I've listened to them repeatedly.
And apparently it's got, I don't know if it's literally got anything to do with Stargate the movie, but there's a trio of tracks that are like Stargate Part 1, Part 2, Part 3.
Really?
So I don't know if it has anything to do with Stargate the MGM property. Or if it's just the cover is a pyramid in space. So
well, I mean that does kind of sound like the original movie was.
And they've already done stuff about like the Egyptians and aliens, and they use ancient aliens as a theme pretty often.
Sure,
it's like their shtick.
And they'll have guest vocals by Teal'c.
Yeah, they'll have guest vocals by Christopher Judge.
Yeah,
that would be great. That would be really cool.
I'd love to hear that.
Just a, but it's just he's not putting on a voice at all. It's just Christopher Judge's normal voice.
Right.
And he's just saying some things.
Yeah. And
just
then at the end he goes,
his very deep voice.
Read it,
boy. But otherwise, just perfectly normal Christopher Judge voice. But next week, Absolute Elsewhere by Blood Incantation.
All right.
Until then, why don't you go ahead and subscribe?
Subscribe.
I've had like I can't physically gesture over a podcast. I've had a very small amount of wine this evening.
Oh, have you? Yeah.
To the degree where I don't feel it's even affecting me.
Sure.
But I felt like maybe that was an excuse.
I've had a very small amount of nerve-destroying
nerve-destroying anus? Oh, no. They destroyed the nerves in your anus?
No, it was an anus that destroys nerves.
Okay.
It's just a disembodied asshole. So, anesthesia. That's what I was trying to say.
Anesthesia.
Anesthesia.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Bronze Medalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
But I'm OJ.
Congratulations.
Ding.
Yes.
Meow. Curse you, He-Man. And he prays.